All roads lead to Rome, yet the routes and the landmarks are completely different. We've already seen in the earlier part of this series that the primary state is one of pure experience that is documented by the five senses. We've also seen how the state evolves in the automatic brain, that is, not the one we are conscious of. Let us now talk the walk from the expressions of the state to the state and the similimum, following the dance of the state from the unconscious, sidestepping the conscious to make itself seen and heard. Together, let us trace the route of this method we call the leap to the similimum. There are three steps or areas in this method. The first area is the one of chief complaint, where the state expresses itself fully and intensely, making the patient aware that there is a state and it needs a solution. As we move ahead on this path, we know that we could choose any pathology, any part of the body, or any part of the person's life, and the state will express itself. Yet, in every method, there are some areas that make it easier in that method for the state to express itself. In this method, those areas, or the step 2, is what we call the FFDA, or the food, fear, dreams, and acute ailments. The acute ailments here denote those kind of ailments in the patient's past that totally took over their lives, where they were no longer son, daughter, office goer, student, but they were just a patient with their state. For it is in these ailments that the state also expresses itself very clearly and uninhibitedly. After this second area of the FFDA, the third area is the leap, moving from the conscious to the unconscious and landing on the state and the source of the similimum. How do we explore these three areas in this method? We collect the symptoms from all the chief complaints, focusing only on the five senses. Therefore, if there is a swelling, we look at the color, the texture of the swelling. If there is a discharge, it's the color, the texture, the smell, and the taste of any postnasal discharge that may be there. As we thus, through all the complaints, collect the words of the five senses, we then filter the words that are coming from the state in the unconscious. We know that the job of the conscious mind is to block the irrationalities from the unconscious from coming out into the conscious. And this is what we use to recognize in these groups of words of the five senses as to which ones are those coming from the state. Those words from the five senses that are blocked by the conscious mind through denials, corrections, slips, absurdities, or unsaid words, we thus recognize and filter out as words of the state. Now enter the second area, FFDA, the words of the state that we collected in the chief complaint now again are confirmed through denials, corrections, slips, that is the blocking of the conscious mind. As we know that the two biggest obstacles that can prevent us from reaching this illogical state in the unconscious are prejudice and the patient's own logical conscious mind, We take care not to ask these words of state that now repeat in the FFDA. We take it as confirmed words of the state, but leave them behind and do not ask them directly as we move ahead unfettered to the third area, which would take us to the unconscious and the state. In this third area, through the FFDA itself, we now begin to hear new words of state that are being denied or corrected, showing us that they are coming from the unconscious mind, as the conscious mind is constantly trying to stop these. As these new words are heard, we pick them as footholds and climb onto the wall between the conscious and the unconscious, a metaphorical wall. It is one of these denials, slips, corrections, etc. that catapults us from the conscious to the unconscious, where we land on the state and the similimum. And we recognize this because the very words of state that we collected from the chief complaint, confirmed in the FFDA, and then dropped in interest of unprejudiceness, and moved ahead to take new words, have now all come together spontaneously in that one very object, which is thus the source of the similimum. And we recognize this because the very words of state that we collected from the chief complaint, confirmed in the FFDA, and then dropped in interest of unprejudiceness, and moved ahead to take new words, have now all come together spontaneously in that one very object, which is thus the source of the similimum. This method happened to me, and hence I believe in it and trust it even more. It is not possible, as I look back on the method, to have sat down and thought and logically tried to create its principles. Everything that I have understood is merely a retrospect to an experience that happened to me. And as you then digest its principles and watch its steps, it will happen to you too. And whether it is to a well-used remedy like Calcarea carb, or to a less used remedy like Buckminster fullerene, you will be taken with artistic steps and a scientific precision through this method we call the leap to the similimum.